about your spring break.
I want to hear
The way I like to do it is, I think I've described it to this class before. My family around the dinner table most every night we play something we call peak or pit. It's like the high point of your day and then the low point of your day, peak, pit. Hey, we don't have to talk about the low points if you don't want to, right? It might be like I fell on my head or something like that. But what was your peak or pit? Give me both. One of them. Give me either. Peak or pit of spring break. Raise your hand. We'll do one at a time kind of a thing. Liam, what you got?
I peaked at spring break and we killed a turkey.
Killed a turkey.
The pit was I had to hunt 5 days for it.
5 days. So I like how you said that because there was a struggle in order to have the reward, right? I struggled and then I had a reward.
I probably walked 45 miles the entire week.
Would you, what weapon?
Shotgun.
Shotgun.
At 20 yards.
So you're going to be like picking out bird shot out of the meat?
It was a 12 gauge with a tight turkey. I shot its beard off. That was the bad part.
Okay. Oh, so you can't keep the beard?
No, I shot most of it off.
Cool.
What was left was like 12 inches.
Did you process it or did you take it somewhere?
Dry process.
When are you going to eat it?
I don't know.
All right. Well, don't forget my invite. That's cool, man. That's good. You got a picture?
Yes, sir.
Pull up a picture. I'll show it to people. Abigail, I know your story, or I know part of your story. Continue.
I want to Universal.
Universal. Tell us all about it, Bryce. I want to hear your version too.
Oh Lord, it started raining on us.
I was
So-
actually. Sorry. Pause real quick. There's Liam's turkey. Everybody see that?
What the freak? That's very beautiful. It's kind of small, man.
Yeah.
It's not
See, you might need an up close version. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
So where were you?
that's
Where
not-
was
that's good.
It was on some dude's land.
Some dude's land.
I had to
Were
pay.
you-
I had to pay to hunt it though.
Oh, okay. I said, were you allowed to be there? I'm glad
Yes, sir.
that was part of the story. Very cool. Very cool. All right, Abigail, continue.
It started raining.
So
on
the
us.
pit was that it rained on you?
No,
No, that wasn't the pit.
no. So we went back to the hotel when we got to the boat. But the pit is. I spent way too much money.
Oh, well, were you like zipping the credit card or were you
I
spending
got a
cash?
video
Oh.
of it too.
So sometimes you don't even know how much money you spend when you're just zipping the credit card, right? Well, what was it on? Stuff or was it on snacks?
Stuff.
Like a shirts or hat or
No.
other things? What'd you spend it on? What's your favorite purchase?
I got my sister a little Build-A-Bear for her birthday,
That's kind.
and I got to see her for the first time in 6 months.
That is cool. That is cool. So lots of peaks.
Yeah.
How was the actual parade that you guys went for?
Long,
Long? How much do you think you walked?
about a mile.
About a mile? About a mile? More? Huh?
Yes, sir.
It was fun though. I was just talking with Sanaa Parker. She was in here. She said y'all did like four
Yeah.
loops. Cool. Very cool. Well, you are a marching band, so you knew you were gonna march. Pretty cool, bro. So very cool story. When we go to theme parks, we spend all our money on snacks. That's why I asked that question. Bryce, add to it.
All right, so I went to Universal, right? But
Right?
yeah, I lost my debit card there.
Oh, so you weren't spending a lot of
Oh, yeah.
money. Hey, that's one way to Dave Ramsey. Just
Hey,
lose your debit card. You can't spend it.
Yeah. So
What
I
else?
asked them to go.
What was your favorite ride? What was your favorite?
Oh, Spider-Man, bro.
Gross.
Yeah, it's the most-
No,
Right.
mine was the Velocicoaster.
Bryce is Peter Parker. Velocicoaster.
No, he's Tom Holland.
He's definitely obsessed with Spider-Man. As much as I've gotten to know Bryce, I know that he's obsessed with Spider-Man. Okay, cool. What did you spend money on? Well, I guess you didn't spend money.
Well, I actually did spend.
Chocolate.
I did spend money actually. My mom had to cash out and go to get me.
Oh, okay. So no matter you lost your card, because these days all the money's just right here. Hey, if they ever try to put it into your skin, say no. Say no. Don't do it. Don't do it. Who else? Who else has something? So band kids, good report. That's
I got more.
no, hang on. Thea, what you got? What you got?
I was
Pick your
here,
pick.
I go to Universal and everything.
You went to Universal too?
No,
Oh.
there wasn't tickets.
Oh, they were all. Yeah, that's right. They do park reservations. Okay.
Yeah, I said that I go only to Universal and everything only for the roller coaster.
Yeah.
And the Hulk, the Hip Hop all these.
I want to go. My family's never been to Universal. We do Disney. That's kind of our jam. But I want to go to Universal at Christmas time.
The Velocicoaster is fun.
Grinch. Okay, who else? Who else has a peak of spring break? They need something.
Oh, I got one.
Blaze looks like she got a story.
Are you?
Blaze definitely looks like she got a story. I'll get to me. I'll go last. Bryce, add to it.
All right, so we went to Gemini Springs, and the bad thing is I was feeling that good.
Okay.
Can't swim. You'll learn.
Did you have a life jacket or something? You have some floaties?
You should go get go find a pirate.
All right, who else? I know y'all had your Universal trip. Who else? Thea, you kind of already had your turn. What you got?
It's okay, it's okay. I think,
Oh, she says it's okay.
so I went to Florida, and that's the peak. The pit is that that break break, the spring break. It was short.
Yeah, it was 9 days. 9 days is not short. But I also agree. Sometimes you need a vacation from the vacation. That's about where I'm at right now. All right, Abigail.
You never go to Universal.
Lost
It
Coaster.
goes up about, I would say about 150 feet. And then it takes you down and you do about 3 loops. And then you do one around.
Did you keep your lunch in your stomach?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of movement right there.
And then you do one right there before you get to the water.
Okay. Great. Is it dinosaur themed? Lost around. Well, hey, what'd you do over spring break?
No, yeah.
Did you ball? Did you work out?
Yeah, we had a tournament in Atlanta.
Okay. You're what's it called? Travel ball team?
Yeah.
How many did you score?
I had like one game I had 30. Maybe a big state.
They made you a mixtape for the coaches, for the recruiters?
Yeah, and I went into the room, did an interview.
Okay.
No,
That's
I
good.
was lodging hard.
Did you get his college?
I won't tell anybody. I won't tell.
I was lodging.
Yeah. Well, who was listening to you?
You know, like, it's on YouTube.
You saw
I got
YouTube?
niggas on YouTube.
Okay.
They said they gonna post. I said,
Did you make strong eye contact with the
yeah, I'm
camera?
like, I got Duke, Gonzaga. I got like 40 D1 scholarships. I'm just like that. I was lying.
Dude, you gonna play for Coach K?
Nah, he tight.
That's right. I was trying to lead you.
That's my favorite team.
Yeah, you can't play for Coach K. You know
Nah,
where he went to college?
no.
Same place I went to college.
Oh,
He went to West Point. He was in the Army for 5 years. Before he started doing basketball. I mean, he played basketball, but he served in the Army for 5 years, and then he became a coach.
nah, but I did get some letters in the mail though.
Good. Yeah, well, that's a peak for you. Yeah, you're gonna show it off. I can show you a
This is the
letter.
part right here. This is Mississippi State. Come on.
Come on, y'all.
I'm D1 now. I'm official D1
Hey.
athlete.
I'm proud of you. Jackie, what did you do on spring break?
Official D1.
Played on Tony Net? Huh? Nothing? Rest is good, right? Liam chose to walk 45 miles.
I didn't
got a
choose
picture
to, I
right here.
had
What'd you
to.
fit?
Last night.
What happened last night?
Been too much money.
Spent too much miles. Some shoes? Those shoes right there?
Nah.
Not even those shoes.
Also, on some cleats.
On some cleats. Okay, for football?
Custom made.
Okay.
Can't get no
You
way.
excited for this coming football season? I'm excited for this coming football season.
I was rocking some D1. My
College
cousin
day
D1.
boots? I mean,
Well, I put him on highlight. Wait till they come in.
put them on skates.
Yeah, had that man. He D1.
I speak all the
Man,
phrases.
so,
I know all the
he-
kids' phrases. Knox, how'd the ball do? I think you won 1 out of 3? Huh? 2 out of 3. I'm sorry, my bad. 2 out of 3. Good. That's a good spring break then, right? If you have to play ball over spring break, it's good to win 2 out of 3. Those are region games. Were those region games?
Yeah.
Those are region games?
We win like, I think 1 or 2 against Waynesboro in the playoffs.
Okay. When's your senior night?
That's against Fidelia.
Yeah, that'll be a home game, right? Okay. I'm not coming to that senior night. We like to go to the senior night ones. And then you'll be a senior someday, and we'll come to your senior night. All right, anybody else? I don't want to cut anyone off. I know it's kind of picking
It's
up.
Blanton's turn.
I don't make people go. I try to inspire you to want to talk. All right, I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you my peak or pit. And Aiden, you reminded me of the second pit. So I'm going to give you 2 pits. Our peak, our family, we went to Disney World, which is what we like to do. We don't have passes. We just go several days a year. And we went with another family. So if any of you don't know Caden Tyre, I bet not.
He's a good baseball player.
He's a good baseball player. His dad's a good dude as well. So our families got to connect a little bit and taste the rainbow and such like that. My pit, Abigail, very similar to you band kids, was we got caught in the rain one time. So that is both of my kids in the stroller. Mason obviously doesn't super fit anymore. 6th graders shouldn't be in strollers, but we're trying to keep the kids out of the rain. And yeah, that was definitely a whole mood right there. That was a whole vibe right there. We had just buzzed our cards, right? We just scanned into the park, and the clouds were ominous. But I swear, like we scanned, we stepped in, right? It started raining right then, and we had a reservation for something that was on the just absolute as far away as you could be. So we couldn't even just wait it out. I mean, I guess we could have. But but we had to hoof it to that reservation, and we could not be undercover like those people right there. So that was a whole vibe right there. Sprint through Epcot, getting rained on.
You really
like that.
sprinted?
We run, walk. My wife had the phone at that point. She was snapping some pictures. And then Aiden, you remind me, you pulled out your letters. I got a letter. You know what my letter is?
To go to Russia.
Jury duty. Got a letter for jury duty for May. So I think I'll have to miss a day of school in May to go report for jury duty.
Let's go.
Hopefully not more than one day. I don't know. I've never actually been called for jury duty before, so I'll have to see how that shakes.
What about
We were in the
Russia?
park.
I will give you a Russia update. I'll give you a Russia update. So one more thing. You guys are like, this dude is such a nerd. I always look for history everywhere we go. And this is something I saw at Disney World. Now, I don't believe it's an ancient artifact, okay? Because you know how they create a bunch of scenes and they try to make you feel like you're in an old age or something like that. So I don't think it's an honest, genuine ancient artifact. But it is something we've talked about. So check out what I saw in one of the displays. What's that?
That's for the theater.
Yeah, Knox nailed it. That's for the theater. What civilization was that?
Greece.
Ancient Greece. And what is notable about this? So what is it for starters? It's a mask. And what's notable about it? Kind of two things that we talked about.
The hair.
The hair, yeah, but that's not exactly what we're talking about. The facial expression for starters. So you can probably see he's a serious character. He's not really angry or happy. He's just he's probably like a father figure. And then what else?
It looks like he's off.
Sometimes the masks were shaped in a way that it projected the volume. So that's not extremely cone shaped, but I can imagine if you had that on, it shapes your language, shapes your voice just a little bit. So I actually saw that in a display. I had Selah, a 5-year-old, with me at the time, and I pointed it out to her. I gave her the whole class on Greece, and she was like, "Can we go to the ride yet?" No. Someday, young grasshopper, she'll be in class, and maybe she'll remember that we saw this picture together. Anyway, so that is a little bit of a wake up, roll into class. Now we do have to get going. This is what I call Revolutions Week. And can I get a helper? Who wants to help me? Who likes me? I know Thea and LaKyra. Just go half the room each. There'll be some extras.
How you been?
This is notes page for the day. We are going to have a kind of activity at the end of it. So just take this notes page, and it's going to help you take notes in our conversation. And we have an activity at the end. We're entering what I call Revolutions Week, and it's a significant part of world history. And I'm packaging together a bunch of revolutions in the same week of class. So first, as you get those pages right there, let's look at where we've been. See where we've been? I hope these phrases, these topics, I hope you recognize that. How to think like a historian, our ancient civilizations, starting with Mesopotamia, water is life. We did not get to touch India and China so much. That's something I did in previous semesters a little bit more. Religion. We have Religion Week. We started to see that religion affects everything. Got into the Crusades, which was very religious based. Age of Exploration, which had a religious motivation to it. Renaissance, the rebirth, and reform, meaning to change. Right. So this is what we've come through so far. This is where we've been. Curious where we're going for the next 5 weeks? Here's how we're going to do the next 5 weeks. You guys ready for school now? You got pencils ready for school?
That's what I mean. That's what I thought
Okay,
you had
all right. We've got 6 weeks of school left. Real talk, about 5 weeks of class. In that 6th week, there's the final for if you have to take it based on absences. But that 6th week, I like to just kind of have that final, let's watch a movie related to world history. So real talk, we got about 5 weeks of class left. We're going to push hard for them. I don't give up days of class. We're going to push hard through all of them. Here's where we're going. We're going to have Revolutions Week. Talk about the scientific revolution, which is the page you have in front of you today. French Revolution, American Revolution. War, right? If it bleeds, it leads. If you open the news tonight, you're going to see war on the screen. We're going to talk about some big ones. World War I, World War II, the Cold War. I'm going to tell you how a war can be cold. If it's so cold, shouldn't it just put on a jacket? Come on, guys. Dad joke. And beyond, right? Life beyond World War II and the Cold War. globalization, the world being more interconnected via technology, space as the next or even the final frontier, and then a variety of government philosophies such as socialism, communism, capitalism. Not a government class, but I got to set you up for your U.S. history and your government classes. So this is where we're going. This is where we're going, just so you can know. These are the topics we still have to get to, and there's some fun ones. If you know any 10th graders, ask them about World War I. Ask them what we do in here. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to inspire you to go ask your friends. We got some fun class periods coming up, so I hope that you'll continue to want to come to school and have fun with it. Now, today, here's where we're going today. Scientific revolution. How do you revolt against science? When I say revolution, I think about guns and bombs.
Evolve.
And shooting. How do you revolt against science?
Evolve.
I like that. Evolving. Anyone else? Discovery. Okay, but that's not a revolution when I think about, changing governments. How can that be a revolution? Kind of asking you a rhetorical question here. Even though it's not related to guns and bombs and shooting and government change, it still is a revolution. It's change, it's discovery, it's growth, and this is the scientific revolution. So we're not talking about a shooting war, but we are talking about a change in science. Now, a lot of times the scientific revolution is taught inside the Renaissance, and I agree that a lot of these things do fit inside the Renaissance. So I want you to remember what we've already come through with the Renaissance. A lot of this is happening at the same time period. As a teacher, I like to put this in the Revolutions Week to talk about all the revolutions at the same time. So just kind of keep in mind, Renaissance time period, rebirth, change, same thing going on inside of science, the scientific revolution. Now, it's not the notes page here. Go ahead and flip it on the back. It's not a perfect little notes page. I should have done some more typing on the back. Here's what I want you to do. Kind of evenly space out these 5 words, okay? So put mega theme, and you're going to write down what is the mega theme. Geocentric, heliocentric, I'll explain them both. Important outcomes and lasting effects. So you're kind of making your own little vocab page on the back here by spacing those out evenly. And of course, when I get to those words, you'll go ahead and turn to the back and write that down. Maybe next semester I'll have a better vocab page, but for now, it's going to work. I like that frog there. Looks like Mr. McGuire. At least the lab coat part does. You guys have a treat when you get in Mr. McGuire's class. Last year, he had 9th graders. So we shared a lot of the same students, and I could make these Mr. McGuire jokes. This year, we don't have the same students, so you guys will understand my jokes about Mr. McGuire later. Great dude. It's all in the mustache. All right, you got these 5 written down. Important outcomes, lasting effects. Good one. You got a peak of spring break? We did peak and pit.
I don't know. I had several peaks.
Okay, choose 3.
I'll go with New Orleans,
Okay.
the French Quarters, and then also Jackson Square within that area. And then we'll go over to San Antonio to the Riverwalk and Alamo. So,
Remember the Alamo. I saw those pictures.
Yes.
It's pretty cool. Next time we do US together, we will get those pictures in for sure. All right, I'm moving on, and I'm moving right on to mega theme. So go ahead and write this down. This is the mega theme of the scientific revolution. Some of you might need to work on your spacing and your size of your handwriting. Mega theme. For centuries, thinkers have been wrong about how the world works. Remember, this fits inside the Renaissance, a rebirth of thinking. For centuries, thinkers have been wrong about how the world works. The scientific revolution reshaped understanding about the universe and about humankind. So I said, how could it be a revolution? It's not about guns and bombs and shooting and government change. It's a reshaping of thinking, kind of revolting against the former status quo, how things used to be. And it definitely, you can see how it fits inside of the Renaissance, a rebirth of thinking from the science perspective. So go ahead and jot down this mega theme. That will kind of guide the rest of our conversation. On the front page, you see 6 scientific revolution thinkers. I like to think of them as the cast of characters. They are the main ones, not the only ones, but the main ones. And I'm going to drop some fast knowledge on you about all 6 of these scientific revolution thinkers. Some of them names you might already know. Others of them you're going to be like, "Ooh, I learned something today." So we're going to go over these big six. That's the goal of the class here today. And we're going to end with an activity at the end based off of how fast you write and how fast I can get through this, okay? Finishing out that last sentence, reshaped understanding of the universe and humankind. Moving on to, so these are some of the main categories. I guess usually I have students kind of guess about this. These are the main categories. Astronomy means the stars. Math, medicine, ever evolving. How do we do better medicine? Philosophy, chemistry, logic. These are the kind of the categories that our six main thinkers are going to fit into. And these are all inside the field of science, right? It's not just a chemist who's doing things with the beaker like the frog on the screen there. Science is a broader field than just the chemistry. So these are the fields we're going to talk about. It's really interesting when we start talking about astronomy and the stars as well. All right, no need to write this. Just kind of let me tell the story. For most of human history, up to this point, right, about 25 generations of humans, if you want to count the clock on human history, people did not expect to live longer than the previous generation. Expectation for the length of your life, 30 years was doing pretty good. I'm 34. I might already be in the ground, right? For most of human history, one generation to the next kind of just expected to have this average 30-ish year lifespan. A lot of dangers in the world. Animals, disease, nature, lack of medicine, right? Without an ability to heal ourselves, there wasn't much hope to live longer. So for most generations in human history, I think I said the number wrong. About 10,000 generations, there were low expectations of living, right? If you take your relative back 10,000 SKUs, right? Your great times 10,000 grandparents. That is how many generations there's been in human history. You and I are a part of about 10 generations that have had improved expectations. Since about the 1400s, there's been about 10 generations born on the earth. I'm a part of about the 10th generation. You're maybe the 11th generation of improved expectations. I'm grateful to be living inside of this world where we have a longer expected lifespan, 70 plus years now. Sounds a whole lot better than 30. And this is because of things related to the scientific revolution. So how did it begin? Well, are you even surprised that religion is involved? It begins with the scientists breaking from religious teachings. The church had such a strong hold on what is truth. The priests who spoke scripture in Latin, they were ones that will say this is true and this is not. Well, these scientific thinkers had to break from that and say, actually, according to our observations, this is not true. This is true. One of those big breaks from the church, the Catholic Church taught that the earth was the center of the universe. Earth, sun on the outer ring, and then all the planets around that, but the earth as the center. What do we think about that today?
The sun.
Yeah, you guys, you know that's not true because you have grown up in an era where we know that the sun is at the center of the universe. But in pre-scientific revolution, people really believed that the earth was the center of the universe. The sun, the moon, and other planets traveled around around the earth. This is called geocentric. So on your back page there, geo means earth. Go ahead and write these the first three bullet points, right? The first three bullet points, geocentric. The earth is at the center of the universe. Geo means earth. So geography, that's a word you might be a little more familiar with. Geography means the study of the earth.
Mr. Right on the mega thing?
A geologist, no, you're on geocentric. Geocentric, sorry, I probably should have maybe had that as the top label. A geologist studies things that come from the earth, minerals, rocks, stones, etc. So geo means earth. Center obviously means center, right? Geocentric and earth-centered philosophy. This is what was taught for hundreds of years until some brave astronomers broke with the teaching of the day and fought the Catholic Church to say, actually, that's not how it works. And I think the first three that we're going to talk about are astronomers who do that. Hey, I'm gonna sharpen. How about it? So you're writing down those first three. Yellow, kind of key important. Bing, bing, bing. Sun, moon, and planets traveled around the Earth. So kind of merge all of our learning together. You now think about the age of discovery and the explorers who had to use basic technology like the compass and the astrolabe. They are a product of people understanding the Earth better, that the Earth is not the center of the universe, and they're able to use the astronomy in order to track the direction via something like the astrolabe. All right, I'm going to move on. I can go back if you need to. Good depiction here. Geo means Earth. Center, centric, geocentric, right? So you got another one on your page that says heliocentric. You might be curious what that means. I'm going to get to that. Here is an early rendering of what people really believe the universe looked like. Now you can see kind of how old it is, right? Obviously, it's not a digital production or anything like that, but it literally shows the Earth, and it's showing two different sides of the Earth, Eastern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere. Shows the Earth at the center. And if you start to read the words right here, they're in Latin, and you can start to see that it's Mercurio, Mercury, Venus. The sun was actually in the fourth ring? Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, etc. So they'd identified some of the planets that we still recognize today, we know to be in orbit. They just had them in the wrong place. They literally believed the Earth was at the center of the universe. I'm going to finish this and then we'll hit our bathroom break, okay? I'm going to finish geocentric. Beyond these orbits was the divine. If you can't explain it, if you can't see it and put your hands on it, it must be divine. Stars were like divine light coming from the heavens, peeking into the geocentric orbits. If you saw a star at night, that just means that the heavens were shining upon you, right? I'm being a little sarcastic in my words here because that's literally what they believed. They didn't recognize that it was a scientific, the science of it. It's a hot ball of gas in the sky. They really thought it was the heavens peeking down into the geocentric atmosphere. The church taught that motion of the planet was the perfect work of God. So think about it. If you're going to say that anything is different, well, then you're saying that God's creation isn't perfect. Don't challenge what the church teaches or else you might go to hell, right? And so many people were gripped by these spiritual beliefs that they let the church be the leader in science until some brave astronomers took a different position, and that's who we're going to be talking about today. Renaissance thinkers, astronomers, and mathematicians demanded that these old thoughts be re-examined, pretty much what I just said, and these are the people we are about to talk about. So, hey, we talked about spring break. I kind of set us up on the scientific revolution. Let's go take that walking break. We'll come back and talk about some people. We got our pencils. We're doing school. That's right. I remember how to do this now.
What? From where? I wasn't here. Last time y'all was here.
Got the Universal Studios update.
Oh, Lord.
We got rain on update.
I saw the rain
Ian
picture.
got himself a turkey, so you can ask him about that. Says he walked 45 miles to get it. Total of 5 minutes.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Swanson? Hello?
I could never. Couldn't be me.
I need to see Jacqueline Perez or Lakira Loretto in the guidance office.
Jackie, they want you in the guidance office and Lakira.
What?
The guidance office.
All I had to see some teeth. The thing about it, they baby blue, bro.
It's like they always.
All right, so I left us off with the crazy belief that the stars are heavenly beings peeking into the Earth's atmosphere. And now we're about to start talking about these 6 individuals who really challenge that, challenge the church's teaching, and well, obviously world history is different because of it. So the first one we're going to talk about is my man Copernicus. Nicholas Copernicus. He is the first one on your page. Excellent. So you'll see each of these say, I discovered ... I'd like you to put it more or less into your own words as I tell about it. I think I got yellow highlights on key parts of the slide that kind of sums up what this person discovered. And of course, you could write as much extra as you feel that you need to. Some of you started taking really good notes. That's going to help you in your whole school life, not just this class, but your whole school life to take good notes like that. So putting it in your own words as best as possible, paying attention to the yellow words, that's what we're going for right here, okay? Nicholas Copernicus. He publishes a book, a document called On the Revolution of Celestial Spheres. Sounds like a super academic-y type book, right? You say I sound just like him? And in this publication, what he says is that, try to do my shocker face, I got gripped. The sun, not the earth, is at the center of orbit. The sun, not the earth, is at the center of orbit. This obviously goes against what the church taught. This is called heliocentric. See, helio is Latin for sun, and then we still have the word center, centric, heliocentric.
That's why the sun god was named it.
The sun is at the center. Very good. Great connection. The sun is at the center. So a little bit of a double here. Flip to your back page where it says heliocentric and more or less the same statement. The sun is at the center of the universe. Nicholas Copernicus comes up with the heliocentric theory. A little bit of a punny here. This might be some of you. So the earth says not everything revolves around you, you know. And then the sun says, well, actually, is that any of you? You think that the universe revolves around you?
Right.
Hey, let's be honest, right? Well, this is obviously a bit of a joke here. The earth saying that not everything revolves around the sun. Well, actually, everything does revolve around the sun. So break down the word, same as we did with geocentric. Helio means sun, center, centric, sun at the center of the universe. This is a great side by side to show what was once believed, geocentric on the left, the Earth at the center, and then what we now know to be true, of course, the sun at the center. So you can see that a lot of the planets indicated were still, were true planets. They were recognized, their orbits were observed. It's just that these scientists put them in the wrong order. And a lot of that was kind of that the whole world shines on me effect. And I know that that's some of us still today, right? We spotlight ourselves. Everything does revolve around me. I know planets don't revolve around you, but it's that human attitude of surely what I have going on is the most important thing in the universe. We are the Earth. We must be at the center. Well, science, of course, we know that we're the third rock from the sun and that the sun is at the center. We'll let this one play out just a little bit. This is a really amazing animation. I did not come up with it myself, but we can see the different pace of revolution of these planets, and the smaller ones that go around planets, those are those planets' moons. So really amazing. And this is what is true and scientific to this day. The sun being at the center while the other planets orbit around the sun. So this is heliocentric. This is true to this day. Earlier I might have said heliocentric theory. Theory would mean that we think it might be true. I would call this, and I'll probably should rephrase it, this is the heliocentric fact, or the heliocentric law. We know this to be true about the universe today. Well, so how do you think that the church responded to Copernicus and his heliocentric theory? The church, the Pope,
They didn't believe it.
they didn't believe it. How do you think they might have treated him specifically?
Poorly.
Poorly. What have we seen about other people who speak out against the church?
They killed him.
Yeah, they're hunted down, arrested, they're killed. So the church's response was definitely a thumbs down. Many scientists were executed for teaching Copernicus's theories. Not just himself, but if you're a teacher, like I'm a teacher, if you're a teacher who's sharing his theories, you might have also caught the wrath of the church, off with their heads. Now, students always give me the slant eye on this. Copernicus himself did not face any persecution in life because he died of natural causes shortly after publishing his theory. A lot of times students are like, yeah, natural causes. I bet they got him with the poison apple or something. But Copernicus himself was not arrested, did not face a trial or execution. He died of natural causes, whatever you choose to believe about that. However, his legacy is that many teachers were imprisoned and executed for teaching his theories. So the church is really adamant about this whole geocentric thing. They're straight up arresting and executing people over teaching the opposite, which of course is the truth. All right, moving on to our next guy, Johannes Kepler. He's just right next in line. Based on the picture, you probably guessed that he's an astronomy guy as well. That is true. Kepler determines that the planets traveled in an elliptical orbit, not a perfect circle. So the picture, the moving image I showed you, it did show the planets in a perfect circle. That is the Copernicus theory. It was the idea that I guess we didn't have an understanding that planets moved in an oval type shape. But Kepler kind of advances the conversation. He takes Copernicus's heliocentric thoughts. He doesn't challenge that. He agrees with that. But he advances the conversation by adding that, you know what? Each body, each planetary sphere has its own set of gravity, its own orbit. And because of that, planets don't move in a perfect circle. They actually move in an oval or an ellipse as they go around, as they orbit around the universe, as they orbit around the sun. An ellipse, I've already said it, it's an oval. You might think that a track, a 400-meter track, where my trackster's at, a track is an ellipse. So these planets move in an elliptical pattern, not a perfect circle. He takes the conversation about heliocentric, he adds to it, continues to improve it. Much like scientists to this day will take, former theories and still improve upon them. So we never stop learning. Here's a picture of what those ellipses look like. And you can see that even so, he still doesn't have it quite just right, because he says that the sun is almost like this anchor and it pushes the other planets out before they come back around the anchor. today we would say that this is more accurate. It's more of an even ellipse. Just a good rendering of what the solar system looks like today.
Can you name that?
Not a science class, not going any farther into the astronomy, but the history of it is that Kepler advances the conversation also at the, challenging the church's closely held beliefs. Liam, did you have a thought?
I said, can you name the last planet?
I go with Pluto, because that's how I was raised. But you trying to get me to say Uranus?
No. That's not.
Woke up. All right, moving on to our third astronomer, Galileo. Galileo. A good rock song that just eclipsed this generation. Eclipse, see what I did there? All right, Galileo. He's often a one-namer, okay, like Beyonce or Drake or all those one-name celebrities out there. Very often we just know him as Galileo, single first name. He actually does have two names, and it's Galileo Galilei, right? But we just go with Galileo. You can understand who we're talking about. Very interesting story. He's a challenger of the church as well. We'll see how it works out for him. So he is an OG Renaissance man, right? Multi-talented. He's a scientist, mathematician, astronomer, inventor. We've talked about the Renaissance people who can do, they're experts in different multiple areas. He is definitely an OG, an original Renaissance man. He invented the thermometer that has mercury in it. So like the glass thermometer you put under your tongue, and the metal or the chemical inside of it is called mercury, and it shows your temperature. He invented that, not the head thermometer, but the one you put under your tongue. He invented the telescope. Very famous for inventing the first refracting light telescope, much like you might buy and have at your house today. Not the big megas that sees all the way, the Hubble telescope sees into the depths of the universe, but kind of like if you go to Sharper Image and buy a telescope, point it out your window. That's the level of the telescope that he invented. But with it, he was able to see the moons of Jupiter. So, it's a powerful telescope, powerful enough to be able to see the moons of Jupiter. This is what Galileo is known for. This is a telescope, today, like I said, the Hubble telescope can see all the way into the depths of space. Just wanted to show you that picture there. But this picture, this sketch, this shows what Galileo's original telescope kind of would have looked like. So I told you, he observed the moons of Jupiter. He determined that the Milky Way, right, with the naked eye, you might just be like, oh, what's that smudge up in the sky? Well, he determined it was a collection of individual stars. So again, we're just advancing the science, what we know to be true about the world. And now here's where he's going to start crossing paths with the church, or start kind of messing up what the church believes. On the sun, to this day, it's a true fact, there are blemishes on the sun that if you look at it with the right telescope, don't go outside and stare at the sun, don't do it, that's not what I'm saying. But if you look at the sun with the telescope, with the right telescope, and you're protecting your eyes, you can see spots or blemishes that are often called sunspots. And what they are is it's basically like a hurricane on the surface of the sun. And how it appears is to be a little black blemish. I got a picture here in a second, so I'll show you a picture here in just a second. It looks like a spot on an otherwise perfect, celestial sphere. What do you think the church thought about sunspots? Let me ask it again. Sunspots, they're a blemish on the face of the sun. What do you think the church thinks about sunspots? Yeah, they did not really appreciate Galileo coming up with this idea that anything in God's creation has a spot on it or a blemish on it. Yeah. Now here's an actual picture. This is what I was trying to get to. The sun, right, orange sphere, that is basically like a hurricane on the face of the sun. What it is gas being whipped around, much like I said, like a hurricane. That's called a sunspot. Something else that happens on the sun, this is called a solar flare, where, I don't know, it's quite like a volcano, but maybe like that emission of gas just off the surface of the sun. It's called a solar flare. So again, these were imperfections, at least according to the church. Now today, it's not a big deal, right? It's not a blemish on the sun. But as Galileo's observing it with his telescope, it obviously looks like a spot. And the church did not appreciate anything imperfect about God's creation. So the fact that he saw this, the fact that he wrote about it, is a big challenge to the church's teachings at the time. Now this is an actual room full of Galileo's telescopes. right? I was telling you it's kind of like a homemade telescope. These are his various telescopes. This is at a museum in Italy. And something super interesting at this museum, now I've never been, right? I've never been to Italy myself, but at this museum, which is called the Galileo Museum, they actually house a piece of Galileo. Not his whole body, right? Sometimes someone's buried there and like you go pay respects to their, not his whole body, but part of his body. At this museum is his middle finger bone on display. Not in a casket, not buried, whatever, like literally on display. And I know it looks really long. It's because it's the bone that starts like all the way at your wrist and goes up. Long story short, as the story goes, when he died, it's kind of weird, but people wanted souvenirs from his body, right? He's a famous person. It's called a relic. Well, his portions of his hand were separated from his body. They are hidden for over 300 years. They were rediscovered in the year 2008, and they were put on display at this Galileo Museum. So if you want to get really weird about it, you could go to the Galileo Museum in Italy and see Galileo's middle finger. No middle finger jokes now.
I ain't got no middle.
Galileo's middle finger. What's that? Take a picture with it. Yeah, you'd be like, my man. Well, so that's what I said. It's like the bone from the wrist all the way up. So that's why it feels like it's longer than just the finger. So anyway, like I said, I mean, and this is how much people revered this man. They wanted pieces of his body as a souvenir. So a little bit more about his fight against the church. Follow these years here. We're going to see that it wasn't like a 1 year thing. This was his whole life. 1615, he attempted to teach Roman church, or the church clergy. Yeah, hey, follow these years, right? I'm weaving the story together. 1615, he says, hey, heliocentric is the way that the world is set up. The sun is at the center. I'm going to go to Rome, and I'm going to attempt to teach church leaders about the heliocentric theory. If you're wrong about something, wouldn't you want to be taught what is right?
No.
Right, let's be honest. Sometimes you got a belief, you're hold close to it, but if you're wrong about it, wouldn't you want to know it? I would. I'll just say that I would. Well, maybe like Aiden, these Roman leaders, or the church leaders, had no interest in being told that they were wrong. So they rejected what he was teaching. Doesn't matter that he brought proof. Doesn't matter that he literally showed them through the telescope, right? He's proving to them what is true and what is false. They wouldn't hear it. They wouldn't hear it. 1616, 1 year later, he's condemned as a heretic. We've heard that word before. Who else was a heretic? Our boy Martin Luther, yeah. And as being declared a heretic, what did he have to go do? He had to go run and hide. Same for Galileo, right? He is no longer in favor with the church. So what they made him do, he didn't go to Castle, he didn't change his name, kind of quite like Martin Luther. They made him promise to not teach that the earth moves around the sun. They say, we don't care what you have to say, I don't care about your proof. You will swear to us, right? Raise your right hand and swear that you will teach, or rather that you will not teach that the sun is the center, right? Do not teach that the earth moves around the sun. Well, he takes that deal so that he doesn't go to jail or he's not, on the executioner's block. But I got a question for you. You got something that you really believe, really closely held belief. You stay quiet about it? No. What do you think he did?
He lied.
Maybe, yeah, when he swore that, he was lying a little bit. He did teach it quietly and privately, much like maybe a house church in China where you're not allowed to be a Christian. Like, hey, come to our house church, come to our Bible study. Same thing. He brought in very few number of students. He was not making public speeches. He didn't have some big university where he was a professor, but he brought in one person at a time, 2 people at a time. Hey, let me tell you about the heliocentric theory. Let me tell you about how the earth moves around the sun. So he did continue to have his conversations. He did continue to teach. The church eventually catches on to this several years down the road, and you can see that it's 16 years later, kind of when they catch up to him, and they say, hey, you now, right, we caught you. We know you're still teaching this. You now have to publicly recant in order to avoid execution. Publicly take back your sayings in order to avoid execution. So what happens next is he does,
But he keeps
to
teaching.
save his life, he does, but yes, he does keep teaching. Up until his death, 1642, okay, so that's another 10 years. His dying words on his deathbed are, and yet it moves, meaning the earth moves around the sun. The sun is at the center of the universe, the earth moves around the sun. So his dying words were his life's work, and he says, and yet it moves. The earth does move around the sun. Now check this out. 1642, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. The newspaper I have here is from 1992. In the year 1992, the Catholic Church finally, officially acknowledges that its judgment against him had been wrong. 1992, what is that, like 300 years, 350 years later, the Catholic Church, I think I'll zoom in on it. After 350 years, the Vatican says Galileo was right. The sun is at the center of the universe, the earth moves around it. So sometimes when we talk about history, it is in the 1600s, but sometimes it creeps all the way into the 20th century. And the Catholic Church, they were so stubborn. Now, I know that leaders in the Catholic Church, they understand that the sun is at the center of the universe, but they didn't officially acknowledge that Galileo was right for 350 years. Just shows you how slow some people can be to actually get to admitting that they were wrong. And then, of course, how you might know Galileo today, Freddie Mercury, pretty famous song lyric, thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me, Galileo, Galileo, Galileo. Oh. You like it when I sing, Thea? You like it when I sing? Yeah. Bohemian Rhapsody has this little lyric about Galileo. All right, moving on. Isaac Newton. Isaac, it's you. Isaac. What did he invent? What do you know about Isaac Newton? The Newtons. The apple. Yeah. Okay. What we got over here? Gravity. Yeah. So we got a couple of understandings about Isaac Newton. So I'll go a little bit faster. Now he comes up with this. Write this down. What did he discover? Write this down. Universal laws of motion. And this is absolutely something you'll talk about in science. Or do you talk about this, Mr. Turner's class?
Yeah, no, it's Ms. Langley.
Ms. Langley's class, yeah, universal laws of motion. He comes up with an understanding of mass, inertia, force, and velocity. Okay, these are his contributions to science. You still talk about him today because of it. An object at rest will stay at rest until acted upon by an outside force. An object in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. Now, as you're writing this down, I'll tell you about one more weird thing he was into, right? All these smart guys.
Did he make girls do something for them?
I don't know about that. That's not the direction I'm going. But he was into one weird thing, and it's called alchemy. Alchemy is actually a pseudoscience, or pseudo means fake, basically a fake science. He was on the search for the so-called Philosopher's Stone. And the Philosopher's Stone was supposedly this mythical, magical type of chemical or, stone that comes from the earth that would, if you had the Philosopher's Stone, everything it touched would become gold. The Philosopher's Stone could turn everything it touched into gold. Now, is there such a thing? Is there such a thing? There is not. Much like the Fountain of Youth, right? The explorer was looking for the Fountain of Youth. Not real. Philosopher's Stone is also not real. Now, I got a question for you. If you have this thing, and everything that you touch turns into gold, well, then what is gold worth? If everything is gold, Abigail said you're rich. I'm going to challenge you on that. It's actually worth nothing. If everything is gold,
It's not gold, that's worth
then nothing is gold. Yeah, so it's kind of this weird pursuit to find this Philosopher's Stone, when in fact, if they found it, all of a sudden gold wouldn't be worth anything anyway. So just goes to show you that as smart as a lot of these guys were, they also had kind of a weird, some of them were exploring weird ideas as well. But that is part of experimenting. That is part of trying to figure out what might be true or discovering what isn't true. And of course, we know that a Philosopher's Stone is not true. Here's the laws of motion, inertia, mass, action and reaction. Kind of already went over that, just so you know. y'all can tell Miss Langlois that you talked about Isaac Newton in history class today as well. And then very famously, he discovered what you know today as the law of gravity. Can someone tell me the story of how he discovered the law of gravity?
All right,
So he was sitting. I'm gonna go with D1 over here. Ooh,
Sitting on the apple.
apple tree. It's like
Like
a
that.
5-minute story, isn't it?
That just hit me.
Just like that.
Just hit
What
me.
was he doing? Was he like thinking?
He was writing a book.
We were reading the book.
Yeah, he was studying in some fashion, whether he's writing or yeah, much like that. Probably not with the selfie stick, right. But yes, an apple left the branch of the tree, traveled downward,
He said, "Oh, it's
bumped him on the head, as the story goes, and it was at this moment he had the realization that, something pulled that to the ground. What is that something? And his studying goes on to find gravity. And the bigger idea is, what keeps me stuck to the ground right now? What keeps us all on this planet that is in motion? Answer is gravity. And the story is that it took this apple falling from the tree, hitting him on the head, in order for him to start studying the truth of gravity. So yes, Isaac Newton's apple and gravity, these are true. This is a tree like the tree that he was sitting under on that day. Now that tree is old and dead because it'd be like 500 years old. I know some trees can live that long, but this tree is actually a descendant of the original tree, right? They take a sprig from that tree, and once the story kind of became famous, that tree became respected and all that. They took a sprig from that original tree, and this is planted at Cambridge today, Cambridge University, which is where he was when he discovered that. Okay, it's basically like the Harvard of England. I don't know if anyone would appreciate me characterizing it like that, but it's the Harvard of England. And anyway, this tree is a descendant of the original tree. Just kind of cool. Never been there myself. If you go there, take a selfie with it for me. So Knox is going to go check out Galileo's middle finger, which is something we learned about, right? Weird time to be coming into the conversation. And Knox, you're going to go to Cambridge and take a picture of this tree? Yeah, I mean, if you're already in Europe, you might as well.
I'm already enrolled.
What's that? Liam, what you got?
That's not gonna do it.
Okay. All right, we got two more, moving on, and then we do have a fun activity. So, Rene Descartes.
I know him.
Do you? What'd he do?
It was a D1 story.
He is not.
He drank coffee. I mean tea.
A lot of you are disciples of Rene Descartes. Is that a powerful word? Are you what is a disciple?
So does that mean
A
he
follower.
was like, he had like a lot of wives and stuff?
No, not why. Is Liam, say it again?
Follow.
A follower. A lot of you are followers of Rene Descartes, you just don't know it. But I'm about to tell you why you are followers of Rene Descartes.
Jesus right here.
Rene Descartes, yeah, right. Disciple, we usually associate that with followers of Jesus. Well, disciple is just a follower. So, disciple of Rene Descartes believes in something called the method of doubt, which means that you doubt everything. Right? Be honest. Raise your hand if you're that person that's going to be like, nope, I doubt it. Not true.
I did that
Prove
when
it
I
to
was
me. Right?
I doubt
If you
myself.
are someone who says, prove it to me, I'm not going to believe it till you prove it to me.
like Bigfoot.
You are a method of, you follow Rene Descartes, which is the method of doubt. His famous saying is, you may have heard this before, I think, therefore I am. He's basically saying, I know that I exist, I think, therefore I exist, but I'm not sure about anything else until you prove it to me. Doubt everything. It must be proved to me before I will believe it. The only thing he was certain of was that he existed. And what this is called is deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning, and you may say that, well, I deduced this fact, right? This is deep. This is some deep philosophy here. Deductive reasoning is to say, I start with no facts at all. I do not believe it until you build the facts for me and you prove it. Start with no belief, move to belief. Deductive reasoning. So a lot of you are followers. Huh?
I said, what you have to do to your parents to get money?
Okay, yeah, you got to negotiate from nothing to something, I guess. A lot of you are doubters of the method of doubters. A lot of you follow Rene Descartes, right? Whether you studied him or not, the fact that you doubt everything and you make me prove it to you, or you make your parents prove it to you, or you make your coaches prove it to you, you are followers of Rene Descartes. Now, how could this method of thinking be beneficial in the age of the scientific revolution? It made people start to prove their statements with facts. So especially the church that says the earth is at the center of the universe, Rene Descartes, what's he going to say? Prove it. Yeah, I doubt it. Prove it. Well, the opposite gets proven, that the sun is the center of the universe. So this method of thinking is very beneficial in an era of scientific growth, scientific revolution. So there you go. You know, Ron Burgundy says, I don't believe you. Let's get past this one right here. And moving on to, is it our last one?
Yeah.
Aha, Francis Bacon, the father of Bacon County. Did you know that?
Take
I
a,
said Bacon County.
Not true, not true. He is not the father of Bacon County. I'll tell you that story on a different day. But he is the father of the scientific method. Is this a Miss Langlois class thing?
no,
Have you talked about the scientific method? Stephanie says yes, I believe it. I believe it. Scientific method. Now, you all use the scientific method every day, whether you know it or not. Whether you know that you're following the steps or not, you do use the scientific method. The scientific method holds that you should ask your own questions and do your own experiments, right? Don't take something at face value just because someone else said it. Don't make a copy of a copy of a copy. Don't just take this fact and repeat it if you know if it's maybe not true. Now, a lot of you with the fake news that you buy into, you kind of fall into this fallacy of not proving it for yourself. Francis Bacon says, ask your own questions, do your own experiments. Don't just believe Helen Keller didn't exist because TikTok said so. Now it blew a lot of their minds right there. Jackie, did you have a hand up? He codified it. He actually wrote down the steps that I'm about to show you. I'm about to show you the 5 steps of the scientific method. So a lot of people were already doing this. You know, when you ask a question and then you go through the steps of kind of experimenting and then you have a result, that is the scientific method. A lot of people were already doing this. Francis Bacon wrote it down. Francis Bacon made it a system, the actual method, the scientific method. So I'm going to move on. I can go back if I need to. Here is the scientific method, right? I'm going to use this one image, right? I got 2 images, but I'm going to just use one of them. First, you have an observation. In the picture here, it's kind of related to plants, so that's what I'm going to stick with. You have this observation. Seeds, soil, pot, and there's a plant growing out of it. I wonder how that happened. Second, you make the question. The question in this particular part of the scientific method, you could ask a lot of questions, but the question here is which fertilizer works best? So that would lead you to say, well, there's fertilizer A, B, and C. Okay, there's Miracle-Gro, there's Scott's Lawn, and then there's cow manure. I wonder which fertilizer is going to make my plant grow the fastest. You have to say what you believe. That's called the hypothesis. Got that word? This is not a science class, but I'm kind of teaching you some science along the way here. Your hypothesis in this example is that fertilizer A will be the best. I don't know what led you to that, right? Maybe it's just taking a guess. Maybe you have a reason to believe it's fertilizer A, but you're going to believe it's fertilizer A. Well, now you plant a seed with fertilizer A, fertilizer B, fertilizer C, and you wait for the results. Picture here, you see the results. Fertilizer A seems to have the biggest plant. Fertilizer B, well, what does that plant look like?
Dead.
Dead and wilted. I wouldn't go with fertilizer B. Fertilizer C, it grew the plant, but just not the biggest and the largest. So therefore, my conclusion is fertilizer A is the best. My hypothesis was correct. And if I'm going to plant plants in the future, I should use fertilizer A. Now, Aiden, I bet you've done this with a different variable. You might say, hey, before track meet, should I eat French fries or a peanut butter sandwich? Like, which is going to help me perform the best? So you might, for one track meet, you might eat French fries and see what your performance is. And for the next track meet, you might eat peanut butter, see what your performance is. My hypothesis is that peanut butter sandwiches are probably better. But hey, if those French fries make you jump the farthest and peanut butter kind of holds you back, might show that French fries are the better. But my hypothesis would be the opposite. You guys see how I did that just like real fast? Like we all make hypotheses all the time. Francis Bacon simply came up with the method. the organized method of the steps of the process. So this is the scientific method. I'm not going to go through that one right there. And then final picture here before we get to our activity. What time is it? We're doing good. You can see how this is a screen grab that I used from a different image. Obviously, there's names we haven't talked about. All right, there are women scientific thinkers, and maybe I should add that to a class in the future because I always want to give the balance to it, right? But I have circled our big six, and you can see that they don't come from the same place in Europe. It's not like they're all inside of this university and they're having these thoughts and they're just like feeding each other's thoughts. They're spread out all throughout Europe, and actually, if you look at their lifespans, they're in different times as well. So it shows that the thoughts were coming over a long period of time and at different parts of Europe. It wasn't just one little hotspot of scientific thought. It was happening all around Europe at this time. So here are the important, so remember our big six. Don't write anything just yet. Here's our big six. We talked about astronomy, math, medicine, philosophy, chemistry, and logic. These are the areas where things change. Now here's where I want you to write the important outcomes. From the science, flip your page to the back. This is where I had you write important outcomes. On the from the scientific revolution, we have a new emphasis on reason, not emotions, not even scripture, but reason. There's a new systematic observation of nature, right? If I see it happening before my eyes, that must be what's true, not just what the church says. But I'm going to actually observe what's happening in nature. Major outcome, father of scientific method, Francis Bacon, created the scientific method, and just overall an expansion of scientific knowledge. So 4 pretty simple bullet points that sums up what is the scientific revolution. Know a lot of facts thrown at you today. Here's the big summary. And then finally, we're going to finish with the lasting effects here in just a second before we get to our activity. We'll have plenty of time to do it.
Just hope you notice anything new about me.
Trying to come up with a joke, but I don't have one.
Just because they know joke about me.
Something about your sleeves getting cut off.
I'm big. I can't wear shirts no more.
This guy.
I get extra large.
It's like you got a medium.
This is like a large right here. Got like extra large.
You probably wear a 14, 16 youth, don't you?
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say, like, yeah, like extra small.
All right, I'm gonna move on. I can go back if I need to. When we get into our activity, if anyone needs me to go back to a particular slide, I will do that. And these will be on Google Classroom here in just a minute as well. All right, here's the lasting effects. It changed the way people viewed science from a negative to a positive. I know that's real hard for us to believe, right? You literally have a science class today. You guys engage with science a lot. But at the time, religious truth was valued and science was like way down low. Well, the scientific revolution, this is what revolted. Scientific revolution put science on top. And from that, it weakened the power of the church. We are still talking about religion in the middle of our other units. Religion affects everything. So change the way people viewed science from a negative to a positive and weakened the power of the church. Ladies, if you will, going to everyone. All right. I'm pulling out some supplies here. They're passing out a page to you. You can tell we got an activity coming. Let me ask you this, and I'll go back. I know some of you still writing. I'll go back in a second. What do y'all call that? We'll make sure I call it the right thing. A cootie catcher? Y'all call it that? I called it a fortune teller growing up, but I have learned that students call it a cootie catcher. Well, this is so that's the word I'm going to go with. You're gonna make a cootie catcher. I already got it printed off for you, and it is about the scientific method. So the first thing you need to do is, you got to share some scissors here, but I want you to, you're going to cut out this paper, okay? Cut out the square along the dotted lines, and then there is a way to fold it. If you need help, I can help you, but there is a specific way to fold it, and what you'll get is the cootie catcher, and after you folded it, right, that's kind of the fun part, after you folded it, want you to just find a partner, whoever's next to you, and actually to play the game a little bit, right? I think you start with the number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and then you pull, yeah. So just start out with making it, and then move on to actually doing it with your partner, just for fun, all right? You got scissors, probably almost enough for everybody, or at least enough to start sharing.
For the next 2 days, I'm
We got a couple extras up here. So this is a time where y'all get a little active, chat it up. And if anyone needs me to go back to a particular slide, I will do that at this time.
Good job.
Let me know. Cootie, catch it up. That sounded weird.
Hey, stop lying. We gonna get tangled. I got
You have this